Okay, so y'all wanted to know what else can I do in feeding therapy that's not systematic desensitization? Well, there's a bunch of different things that I can share with you. However, each one has to be individualized to the child. So I'm just gonna give you two things that you might start thinking about. First is you have to figure out the underlying reason why the child is having feeding difficulties. If we can't figure this out, there's no way we're ever gonna get to intrinsic motivation. Now, this could be things like a medical diagnosis and medications that the child is taking, but it also could be things like past food trauma or negative experiences associated with mealtimes. Ultimately, we have to figure out the why to help inform our plan of care. Recognize certain signs and symptoms and make appropriate referrals to other providers that can be part of this child's feeding team so that you can move forward with progress. The second thing that I want to talk about today is rethinking about how we consider the ABC of feeding. First, let me start by explaining this. Antecedent is something like the food that's being presented or the mealtime. Behavior is the response or reaction that the child has. And then the consequence is typically when we think about behavioral therapy, what somebody is doing, whether that's a punishment or praise or something else that's being provided to change the reaction or response that the child had. So in a behavior sense, this would look like I presented a new food, child threw it, and in order to extinguish that behavior, they are provided with a punishment or negative reinforcement. And this sometimes looks like things like ignoring them or representing that antecedent again repeatedly until the child stops that negative behavior or reaction. Now, I want you to reframe your thinking around that because we should consider all types of reactions and responses communicating something to us. And our responsibility is not to provide a consequence to extinguish that behavior. Our responsibility is to change the antecedent so that the child can have a more positive reaction and experience. So let me give you a quick example. You're introducing the child to a strawberry. The child does not like the strawberry, pulls away, turns away, throws the strawberry off of their plate. Consequence? Not worried about that. We don't even need a consequence. Bye-bye, see you later, consequence. What we need to think about is, okay, how did I present that strawberry? Could I change the presentation of it? Should I present it with other preferred foods? What was the pressure surrounding that circumstance? Should we maybe present that food in a way that is not around meal times? Even if pressure wasn't intended, sometimes the child can feel like there's an expectation that they have to eat something, even if they may not be comfortable with it. Was it presented in a circumstance where things were really, really loud and really, really busy? And so we know that this child could benefit from the sensory support of noise canceling headphones. Does the child not have a way to communicate how they feel about that food? That can really, really feel like a loss of control and a loss of autonomy. Was it that this is a food that the child does not feel confident enough in eating because they're not sure if they have the skills to do so? Now, those are just a few ways that you might think about modifying this antecedent. And the strategies to modify that antecedent can look very, very different depending on the specific child, the family, and the circumstance. I'll talk about those strategies in another video because I'm already running out of time. But I hope that was helpful in rethinking some of the ways that we approach feeding and feeding therapy. Let me know what you think in the comments and stay tuned for more later.